Think about the last time you talked something through in therapy. You walked out with clarity. You understood the past, the meaning, the origin of the pattern. But the next time the real moment hit, your body reacted the same way it always has. And that's when you notice something important. Awareness of the past doesn't always shift what happens inside you right now. Most reactions don't start with a thought. They start with a sensation, a tightening in the stomach, a clench in the jaw, a shift in the breath. These cues fire before any story, meaning, or memory. That's the level where the pattern is actually trained. Someone I worked with understood her history with incredible precision. She could trace every reaction back to childhood. She knew the meaning behind her shutdown. She understood the origins of her defensiveness. She could explain every part of her upbringing in detail, but the moment tension rose, her body still tightened exactly the same way. But the moment someone challenged her in real time, the same shutdown happened. The same breath pattern, the same tone shift, the same pulling away. Not because she didn't understand enough, not because she didn't process enough, but because the place where the pattern lived had never been retrained. The nervous system doesn't update from memory or from the story of how a pattern formed. It updates from what it experiences in real time. The nervous system doesn't update from insight. It updates from repetition inside the moment where the reaction fires. The state being reinforced here is early activation. The system learns to move first and think later. This is why the past can explain the pattern, but it can't change it. You may have had this moment. You understand the pattern. You've processed it. You've talked about it. You know the meaning behind why you respond this way. And then someone says one sentence the wrong way, and your whole body shifts. Your chest tightens. Your breath shortens. Your attention narrows. The same loop plays again. Not because you forgot the insight, but because insight never reached the place where the reaction lives. Someone I worked with once said, "I understand everything about how I got this way, but in the moment, it's like the past wins." What she was feeling wasn't the past, it was the pattern. The state being reinforced here is mismatch. The mind understands something new, but the body practices something old. Many people start to believe the pattern means something about them. I must be blocked. I must need more healing. I must not have processed enough. But what's actually happening is much simpler. The system repeats whatever it's practiced most. You may notice it when you try to stay open in a conversation, and the moment something feels tense, your body moves toward distance. Or when you try to stay grounded during stress, but the system jumps into urgency. Or when you try to stay present with your partner, but a small cue pulls you into old defensiveness. It has nothing to do with not understanding the past enough. It has everything to do with the nervous system doing what it knows. Someone I worked with described it this way. I know I don't need to react this way, but my body moves before I choose. That moment shows you the level where the work actually happens. The state being reinforced here is automaticity. The pattern fires because it's been repeated, not because it's meaningful. Real change begins the moment you stop trying to shift the past and start training what happens now. This doesn't mean the past doesn't matter. It means the past doesn't train the pattern. The pattern trains itself through repetition. Someone I worked with had spent years talking about his childhood. He could articulate everything with maturity and insight. But the moment conflict appeared in his marriage, his body tightened, his voice flattened, and he shut down. When he finally learned to interrupt the physical cue, the tightening in the chest, and redirect into a steadier state, everything changed. Not because he healed his childhood, but because he retrained the moment. The state being reinforced here is steadiness, and steadiness can only be practiced in real time. If this is landing, you're welcome to subscribe. I share new videos each week focused on training a steady, grounded inner state. Let's keep going. One of the clearest indicators that the past isn't the problem is this. Your insight keeps growing, but your reaction stays the same. You understand yourself well. You can explain the pattern. You can talk about the origin. But the moment you're under stress, the system falls back into familiar intensity. That's not a failure of awareness. It's a reflection of what hasn't been trained. Someone I worked with said, "I just want my body to catch up to what my mind understands." That's what happens when insight outpaces the emotional state you've been practicing. The state being reinforced here is mismatch, understanding without embodiment. This is the part people rarely name. Insight feels encouraging. It feels clear. It feels like progress. But experience in the moment feels old, patterned, familiar. You may feel this when someone asks you a direct question and you tighten before you speak, or when you're trying to stay present with your partner but your attention pulls away, or when you want to stay grounded but your system jumps into a story before you even realize it. That's not resistance, that's the trained state expressing itself. Someone I worked with once described it as, "My body hasn't gotten the memo." But the body doesn't update from memos. It updates from repetition inside the moment where the pattern used to run. The state being reinforced here is pattern loyalty. The system stays with what it knows. If you're noticing yourself in this, there's nothing wrong. This is simply a pattern that was practiced, and patterns can be retrained. Capacity expands the moment you start to train inside the experience, not around it. When you feel the tightening, when you feel the breath shorten, when you feel your attention narrow, that's the moment where the work actually lives. Someone I worked with learned to catch the first 2 seconds after activation. That was the window. That was the place where his system could be redirected. And the more he practiced in that window, the more his system changed. He didn't have to understand more about his past. He had to train a different response in the present. The state being reinforced here is choice, not in thought, but in pattern. And so, before we end, take a moment with this. No need to analyze it. Just notice what comes up. What emotional state are you practicing most often without realizing it? You'll find the Inner Foundation method below if you want to train an inner state you can count on in the moments where understanding the past hasn't changed the present reaction. And if you'd rather keep reflecting week by week, you'll see the sign up for my newsletter below. I'm also on Instagram at Mike Wong Coaching, where I share simple reminders that support this work day to day. What we explored today shows how memory and insight don't always update the nervous system. Seeing that difference opens a different way of relating to your own reactions. It gives you a new sense of what's actually possible to retrain. Glad you were here. See you in the next one.